Malmö. That's Sweden. Stockholm, Amsterdam, Hamburg, Swedish. That's amazing. A lot of people from Stockholm. That's cool. So the Stockholm people, it's October, but we could see the snow falling outside of our windows today. That's insane.
Yeah.
That is insane. Someone's writing what? Yes, it is true. We have someone from Dubai as well. That's really cool. I bet we don't have any snow there, hopefully. That would be crazy. How are you doing, Anna?
I'm great, thank you. And how are you?
I'm good. I'm good besides the snow.
So excited.
We are super excited to host this talk. We're going to talk about freelancing. And I mean, you are the most prominent advocate about freelancing, and we are so happy to have you here to, you're going to guide us through these steps.
Yes, exactly. Oh, thank you for having me.
And I know that's like, it's been a big request about freelancing, and it's many people who are thinking about changing to freelancing, especially if you are perhaps in tech or thinking about tech.
Yeah, but like all different kind of works could be done the freelancing way, I believe.
Could be done the freelancing way.
Yeah.
And this is something that you're going to talk about today.
Of course, of course.
And I'm not going to babble around. I just wanted to give you all a heads up who's here as a participant. We can't see you and we cannot hear you, but we can communicate with you in the chat. And we can also communicate with you in this Q&A function. It's a little button down here somewhere.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask in the Q&A, because that's easier to keep on track. So Anna, you will have some time after perhaps to answer the questions that you have.
I thought maybe we could do them during this time, actually.
Let's do them during then.
But then you need to like stop me and say like, hey, we have a question.
I will, absolutely. I will be moderating the questions. And so just ask away during the session.
Yeah, because I think it's most important that you get the answers that you want than me just, I don't know, babbling.
Sounds awesome. Let's just kick this away, shall we?
Sure, let's start then. Well, again, thanks for having me, Technigo, and thanks to everyone who has showed up. It's like an amazing show up today, so I'm super excited. And I also wanted to say that I think that Technigo is doing an amazing work. I mean, you're teaching within tech, coding, design, and you're female founded, and you talk about lifelong learning, but you also talk about doing what you love. And I think that is like a super important message for me as well, because with the freelance model, you can do what you love. You're not stuck in the like normal hamster wheel trying to work yourself up on a corporate ladder. You can choose your own way. And that is like super important message for me. But that is what we are going to talk about today. I think we have 45 minutes to an hour at our disposals. And as I said, just fire away your questions continuously, because I think it's super important that you get the answers to your questions in this session. So don't be shy, just shoot them whenever you feel like it. And what we are going to talk about today is how to become self-employed and a freelancer. I have written a guide. It's on my website. It's called annalejon.se. And it's the freelance guide. And it's 17 steps. It sounds long, I know, but I will walk you through it. I will hold your hand. It's 17 steps to become a freelancer. And that is what we are going to do today. But first, I just wanted to go through the agenda. I wanted to introduce myself, of course. Like, who am I sitting here talking about this? I want to talk a little bit about why I am doing this. Like, why am I so invested in this subject? I want to talk about what it is. I mean, like, what is freelancing? Like, what is the definition? You can do it in so many different setups and ways. So let's clarify that. And also, what are the positive aspects of freelancing? Like, why should you do it? Why would you consider it in your career? And then we go through all the 17 steps so that you can become a freelancer once we are done here today. And maybe I can go through the 17 steps shortly, just so you get a feeling of what it's all about. So the first step is basically to just research the freelance life, to just like Google, like, what's the definition? What is it? Is it interesting for me? And you need to compare it to your particular situation. Like, if you're employed today, what are the benefits of becoming a freelancer for you? Is it more flexible? Do you earn more? Is it both earning more and more flexible? I mean, then it's a no-brainer. But it's really dependent on your own situation and the amount of freelance work available for you in the market. Because sadly, you can't push yourself on the assignment. Like, the assignments need to already exist, kind of. And then you can apply for them in different ways, but we will go through that. So it's a little bit about, is your profile suitable for freelancing, which can be less or more difficult depending on your profile. And then you need to write a CV, a normal thing to do in the jobs market. But this is a short or a longer CV, depending on how you see it. It's a consultancy CV that I like to call it. So it's a CV adopted to the freelance setup. After you have a freelance CV, then you're good to go. Then you can start searching for assignments and start to apply for assignments. And you can like take the temp, as I call it. You can contact brokers. I will talk about brokers in a bit, like what that is. But brokers can help you get an assignment. And they are really good at taking the temp in the market. So they know what is up right now and what kind of assignments are out there. So you should talk to them and just pitch yourself and ask, like, could you get an assignment for me? And then the fourth step is that once that has a positive outcome, like you've heard that the broker is like, yeah, we could probably get you an assignment, like that they're answering your emails, it looks like positive from there, then you can start looking at an accounting system. Like, then you need to have the company in place and all of that. You need to make a business plan, a company name, you select a company bank, and you start the actual company. In Sweden, we usually call it limited company, aktiebolag. But you can choose whatever setup works for you. I usually promote that you have your own limited company. But of course, you can go through like freelance agencies in Sweden. Oh, now I don't really have one on top of my mind, but there are several like agencies who can do all of this for you, but then they will also, of course, charge something for it. So then you don't get as much money in your own pocket at the end of the week as you would have if you would have had your own company. So I always try to promote that one, because then you earn the most, basically, and you are the most free, so to say. Okay, lots of steps regarding starting your own company. And then you register your company for VAT and for being able to be taxed, basically. So that's a step that you need to do. You need to be able to be taxed, and in order to be able to send invoices. But we will talk about that a little bit later. You hand in your notice, so your termination of employment, basically. And note that this is very late in the process. So I usually promote that you can be employed for quite some time, and you can try this setup whilst being employed, so you minimize the risk, the financial risk of not having a job, basically. So I recommend that you leave in your termination of employment pretty late in the process. And then you apply for assignments for real, because usually assignments, when a company has finally landed in a decision that they need to take in someone quickly, they want probably a freelancer because that's the quickest way of getting someone on board quickly. Then they want someone like today, like preferably yesterday. They want you to start ASAP. So usually applying for assignments is really good to do when you are able to start working. But you can do it before. But that's depending on your risk profile, basically. Hopefully after that you will get an interview. Like 99% of all freelance gigs start with an interview and you meet the client. Hopefully that turns out well, and then you sign a contract, and that's also a pretty important step in this journey to become a freelancer. That the signing of contract is something that you should not take so lightly. And after that, you have a contract and you're out on the assignment, and you're an established freelancer. So that's basically the 17 steps that will take you there. Now I've been talking for like 10 minutes. So this was the introduction to this webinar. I hope that you're still interested in what's going to be said. And remember that you can ask questions all the time. It's no problem.
Already got some questions. I also have one interesting question. Someone asked, but this is to the Swedish market. So what do I need to have my own? I mean, this type of company setup, it works differently in different countries. I know that there are some solutions that you can actually, I'm not sure what it's called, but you can not ask, but you can have another company to do for a small amount of sum to deal with everything for you, basically.
Yes.
It's like freelance finance or something similar.
Exactly. So you can definitely start out with those if you want, and they're probably different in different countries and in different markets because it's a country specific thing, basically. But what you want to start is a limited company, is what it's called in the US, an aktiebolag in Swedish, and you can probably search on what the same thing in your country is. It's basically like the highest form of a company. So that is what I recommend. Was that an answer to the question?
Let's see what she says in chat. Who company? Someone says also there are. But one question that arises, like, how do you know your value when you are a new freelancer?
That's a great question. There are several different like gig portals, if you want to call them that. I actually have written a super popular article on the subject called Konsultmäklarlistan in Swedish. Sadly, this is for the Swedish market then, but I bet that there's something similar in your market. And that is basically that I have researched all of the different, like you can call it markets or agencies or brokers, like all of the different players that can deliver an assignment. And we have some global ones as well who are operating the global market, maybe like Upwork and Fiverr and lots of different global players. And I have actually also listed the global players that I know in like Konsultmäklarlistan. So if you're interested in the global market, not only Sweden, you can look at that list as well. Because there you have all of the different, let's call them brokers. Like they call themselves different things and they have different setups. But basically what they do is they can give you an assignment and they can help you with everything around that as well. Usually, like Upwork does everything. They do the agreement, they sign everything with you, they hand out your pay and like all that stuff. So some of them really do everything. But they are brokers and they can help you know like your worth or your the services you are able to provide, if they are valuable in that market, and what your salary could be, basically, like what could you earn from doing that as a freelancer. it can be like, I'm interested in tech, like I operate in the tech area and Technigo as well, but you can do everything from photography to translations. Like in Sweden, there's a big debate right now about like doctors who, like, it's called like stafettläkare, who are consultants. So I mean, like, you can be a consultant or freelance in any kind of profession. But most common is within tech. And there's a huge, like, people are looking for super many people within tech. So it's like super hot, even if it's like bad economic situation right now, particularly in Sweden, but also in the whole world maybe. But they are looking for people within tech, like developers, designers, like, yeah, it's you can probably find something if you have that profile, I would guess. But the more junior you are, sadly, the more difficult it is. Like, it's that basic. If you have a couple of years of experience, it's easier. And like for me, I've been freelancing for like 6 years. Before that, I was a hired consultant for 1.5 years. So I mean, then it becomes easier, and you can also charge more. So it's a basic, like, supply and demand jobs market, also in the freelance market. But I would send my resume to the agencies and the different market players, and just check if they think that they could sell you, basically, because that is what they will do. They will sell your services. And you can also, if you do the other way around, you can look at those portals and see if you could do any of the gigs or assignments that they have listed there. Lots of them require you to get an account, but it's usually free, so that's great. So you just create an account with your email and log in, and then you see all of different assignments that they are trying to handle right now, basically, that is up for grabs. So
some sort of sneak peek on do some pre-research and see what's
exactly
on.
So I think that both of those are really good approaches to see if freelance could be something for you. Particularly, like, if you're interested in a specific technology within development, for example, like, they usually write that out in the assignment. And in these broker portals, you can usually filter on a particular technology that you are interested in. Let's see, like JavaScript, like super, like everybody is looking for someone in JavaScript, it feels like. So then you can see all the assignments that mention that.
Is it possible, because people, you guys are asking also, you know, if you're a junior, I mean, it should say some sort of level, I guess, or?
Yeah, it usually does, but if it doesn't, the salary pretty much tells it as well. Like in Sweden, for instance, like a junior developer probably can go for like 800 kronas at an hour, 800 SEK. So then you know, based on the salary, if it's a junior position or not. Like someone who is a little bit more experienced would never take that salary. You gotta know your worth, right? But it could say, and otherwise you can tell from the salary. And like, it's, at the end of the day, it's up to you whether you accept that salary or not. Like, are you happy with that salary? Then go for it. I mean, it's a subjective opinion about what salary you are satisfied with. Like, obviously, all of us here, we want as high salary as possible. But again, it's a supply demand curve. Like, then they will go looking for someone else. So it's a subjective opinion, and you need to settle on, like, what's the least amount that I would be comfortable with.
Yeah.
Like, for me, it would probably be like 1,000 like kronas an hour.
That's around 90 euros.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then it would be like the best assignment I could think of, like the most interesting assignment I could ever think of, because then I'm prepared to lower my rate. So I mean, that's the ballpark that we're talking about here.
And I mean, of course, if you are a beginner, you might, want to build up.
Yeah. Yeah, like yeah, exactly. So the
Or-
first, like, be happy if you get your first assignment, because that one is gonna lead you to the next, and that one is gonna lead you to the next, and so forth. So like get a foot in the door, kind of like that's a super good opportunity in order to be able to start freelancing. I mean, that's the key. So get a foot in the door, and then you can raise your rates. Maybe you can do that for half a year or whatever, you know. And then you can raise your rates and raise your demands and so on.
That's great.
Yeah.
We have some, I'm just gonna put this question in because a lot of you asked about how much the brokers charge for your services.
Great question. And this is like a hot topic in the freelance world, because obviously we want as much for ourselves in our own pockets. And I mean, the broker in between the customer and you, they take different like rates. It's very common with like 10%. I would demand to like for them to be transparent about this. Like tell your broker, like, I'm not gonna sign anything unless you tell me what's your rate. I mean, you don't need to be that black and white about it, but if they are a little bit that they don't want to share that, then I think that you should pressure them into doing it, because like this is so important for you as well, because you need to know what the final salary for you is at the end of the day, and that is what the customer is paying for you. And then you actually, like, you're a customer to the broker, and you are hiring them. So you need to think about that your customer is the customer that you are doing the job for, but you are a customer to the broker. You are hiring the broker to provide a service to you, and you pay them. You pay them something for that service. And if you think it's too high, they're not worth it, then you should go to another broker. That's super important. And like obviously compare them to each other, and not just settle for the first one if you're not happy with the rate they are charging. I usually, one tip is to demand free part contracts. So it's a contract where all three parties sign. So then it's super transparent, 100% transparent what everybody is earning at the end of the day. So free part contracts are a great way of being transparent in this industry. But most brokers don't have that. But you can try to demand that. It's a good idea.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. Is there another question?
I was like, I have one from mine because I just become so curious. Do you remember, Anna, your first freelancing assignment?
Yes, yeah, I can tell you about that. Now we're starting to go through the
Now we're
agenda,
starting
so
to
that's
draw-
great. What I was about to say anyway. So I studied at KTH within like engineering, and then my first job was as a hired consultant within IT. I quit my job after 1.5 years, but I actually applied for my first freelance gig while I was still working there, and then I got it, and then I quit, and then I mean, like a consultancy agency, they don't want you to have you there unless you have an assignment. So I was able to quit before my leave of termination. I mean, it's usually like 3 months or something like that. Before that was up, I was able to, they let me go basically, because why they don't want to keep me if I don't want to be there, and vice versa. So I left and started my first assignment. And my first assignment was a product/project leader gig at a Swedish bank. And actually, my assignment was to exchange the core banking system for that bank. So like super heavy assignment. It took 1.5 years, I think, to exchange the whole core banking system to a system called SAP. I think maybe many people have heard of it. So that was my first assignment. And it was just such a like revelation when I got to send my own invoices to that client, and I was like super happy, because the only one who was involved in the transaction was like me, them, and the broker, and I didn't have the consultancy firm in between who like try to steer me in different directions. And yeah, it was just so much nicer to be transparent in that way instead of being a hired consultant. So that was my first gig, and I was actually there for 1.5 years. So some gigs can be super long, others can be short, some can be remote, others can be a little bit more like at the client. Usually now, most assignments aren't at the client 100%. Like they can say that they prefer you to be at the office a couple of days a week, but it's normal now to be remote like 2-3 days a week or something like that. I think that would be the most normal situation actually these days. So some gigs are 100% remote, others are 50% remote or 20% remote, but usually some remote. That's what's actually changed since during Corona. And when I started, I was 100% at the client when I started. But that's changing, and we are becoming much more, global and much more remote and much more free, basically, which is so great. But that was my first assignment. But maybe I should tell you a little bit about myself as well. Like I answered a bunch of questions. I really didn't introduce myself, but
Someone saw that they recognize you.
yeah,
Why
I could
is
tell.
that?
I was actually at the Swedish show called Draknästet, or Dragon's Den is the American version, I think. Was it 2 weeks ago or something like that? I was actually pitching one of my startups that I have been able to fund and start because I am a freelancer. Because this company is completely bootstrapped, meaning we have financed it completely by ourselves. And that is one upside due to freelancing, that you save money in your own company, that you can invest in your own projects or in your own hobbies or whatever, which is super awesome. So that's why I wanted to bring that up, because it's a really positive aspect of being a freelancer. And that's why I had this little QR code in the background here, because I wanted to tell you about that. I also wanted to, a positive aspect is that I'm, doing some marketing here as well for our little company. But the main point was to make that statement that freelancing enables you to have to finance your own hobbies or your own projects and start own companies while you're freelancing, because that is what I'm doing. Like, I work half a year and then I'm free half a year, meaning working on my own stuff. And what I have earned during the freelance gig is what I'm paying myself when I'm working on my own stuff. So I'm investing in my own companies. And hopefully Flowby, which is the name of the company that we pitched in Draknästet, is going to be worth like that time that I'm putting in at the end of the day. But right now it's really small. But yeah, so I was in Draknästet, and that's just one part of everything I do. But I also have a website that I mentioned before, but annaleijon.se. And I write there like all of my different guides to becoming a freelancer, mostly about freelance, but also about tech and management and other kinds of subjects that I feel inspired by at the moment. But I think my main message and my most popular articles are about freelancing. I have the freelance guide with 17 steps, konsultmäklarlistan, like the broker list, also super popular, which helps freelancers find an assignment and find a broker. And besides that, I do lots of speaking and writing engagements. I have my own podcast called Techskaparna. Also something that I was able to do because I have my own company, because I am freelancing. So I started my own podcast. I bought this mic and lots of other stuff that you need in order to have a podcast. And I built my own website for the podcast. And I was able to do all of this because I have a company and because I have freelanced. And I was able to send invoices to all of the sponsors who wanted to promote themselves in my podcast. So, like, if you're interested in doing all of these side gigs, if you're interested in building your own company, if you're interested in charging customers for content that you are creating as a hobby, it's a good idea to freelance as well, because it goes hand in hand. Then you have the understanding business wise, and also you will have some time left over because you're a freelancer, right? You can plan your day exactly as you want it to. So that's a really good idea. If you're not interested in the normal 9 to 5, working for someone else, doing the same thing all the time, trying to climb the corporate ladder and so forth, you want to do your own stuff, then freelancing is the absolute best choice, absolute best way to go, I think.
It sounds like a lot of freedom.
Yeah, it is. I mean, when you don't have an assignment, you are completely free. And usually you have earned some money, as I said before, so that you can give yourself a full salary without even working. You don't need to like take vacation as you need to when you're employed. So that's like super important. And I mean, depending on if you want a like 100% remote gig, for example, then you just say that in your resume and you only apply for those assignments. I mean, that's one thing that you can decide yourself, of course, like what kind of assignments am I interested in? Do I want remote or English speaking or whatever it might be? You can decide that completely for yourself, and no one else sets those rules for you. You agree to something in the contract, and that is something that you have agreed together with the customer. And that could be that you work 100% remote, for example. There are lots of other ways of being free as well, but that is one way. So that's something that I wanted to tell you all about. Oh yeah, I also wanted to mention that I have a freelance community in Slack with 1,500 members, and it's like how do you say? Yeah, it's in Slack, and you can apply, but we only allow established freelancers to become a member. And we have a really nice community going on, and we hang out quite a lot and so forth. So I also want to say that it's not that you're not that lonely when you're a freelancer. That's an important message, because that is usually what the companies who want to employ you say, that they are like a family and we have all these values and we do everything together and all of this stuff. They want to be your new family. They want you to be as hooked in their culture as possible. But as a freelancer, you're completely like distance from all of that, but you can create your own family if you are interested in that. If you like, we have like, I think it's like 20 messages every day that shows up in our community. Like, we're discussing everything from like challenges at the assignments, the bookkeeping, how you get an assignment, and we help each other out to find assignments and so forth. So even if you don't have a community at your employer or at your customer, you can still have a community and a family feeling with all of us. So that's a very important point. It's not that lonely to be a freelancer.
I mean, there are many freelancers, so you should be able to find other people. But one thing that I noticed, because Anna, you are very outgoing, and do you need to be out? Can you be an introvert, or you know?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, for instance, I work a lot with Upwork. I don't take assignments for Upwork, but I I actually am a customer of Upwork, so to say. So I hire freelancers from Upwork to help out with our startup Flowby, and I pay them by the hour. And I actually have never met them. I've never even spoken to them because it's usually like small gigs, like micro worker gigs, like translations or naming this or that, or writing content or whatever, those kinds of things, like photography, that kind of stuff. And I have never even met them, but I've like chat with them in the Upwork portal and everything. But you can be a complete introvert and don't have to sell yourself to anyone. You just need to like upload your CV and then you're good to go. So that's a super important point as well. I mean, if you get a broker, they will sell you for you, so to say. So you don't need to be a salesperson. You don't need to be the like most outgoing person in the world who is able to pitch themselves in an elevator in like 30 seconds. Not at all. It's not at all like that. So don't feel discomfort because you feel that the sales bit is going to be tricky, because it's not. Really not.
That's a good point. I can read in the chat, Oscar is writing, brokers also arrange after works and stuff sometimes. That's good.
Yeah.
Good to know. And many people are writing, I want to hear more about pitfalls.
Pitfalls. Yeah, brokers are a big pitfall now that you mention it. So okay, brokers, they want to lock you in as much as possible. Like they want you to stay with them. Like the best scenario for a broker is that you find an assignment through them really quickly and easily. You are out on the assignment and you stay there for all your life, and they just continually charge, because what they do is take 10% of your earnings for the rest of your being there, basically, all like throughout all time. That's what the contract usually says. And the same with Upwork and everything. They charge a percentage. I mean, they're not stupid. They like, as long as you continue working there, you will give them money. So at the end of the day, the best situation for them is that you stay as long as possible at the assignment, and they just keep on charging. And that's why they want to wheel you in and lock you in, and they want you to stay with them. So that's why they organize after works and all of this stuff that they organize. I mean, it can be super nice, of course, to go there, but I think that you should be super aware. I think it's a pitfall to have one broker. I have changed brokers 5 times now, I think. I usually compare them to each other. And don't compare the soft values, because you can get the soft values somewhere else. I mean, whatever, after work. They want, even if you don't have assignment with them, you are very welcome to join their after works. So you don't need to go through them in order to join the after work at all. You can be there anyway, because they want as many people as possible to join their after work. So that's super important to not have one broker, to compare them to each other, and particularly not like fall for the soft values. Just compare the hard values, which is like how much do they take. I think that's like the biggest thing that you should compare, and the biggest difference. And usually those who have after works, they charge more. They have like 15% cut. So are you willing to pay for that? I don't know. You should make an informed decision about this, and not only like, get all like carried away when they're selling themselves to you, because that is what they do. You need to be very like aware and awake, particularly in the business world. If you have your own limited company, like people are gonna send you fake invoices and they're gonna try to sell you all of this stuff. But it's super important to be aware of yourself and your financial situation, and not like just give away free money, which is what I think that you do if you sign with a broker just because they have an after work.
Yeah, or that loyalty. I think that some, coming from, if you come from the being hired, being employed by a big company, and you're loyal and stuff, but that's not the case coming to freelancing. Anna is asking, another Anna is asking about the terminology, because we are talking about freelancing, but you also have mentioned consultant. So is it the same thing? Someone also added your article about the differences, but I'm going to ask you anyway right here.
Yes, that's a great question. And I mean, I think because this is quite a new phenomenon. I mean, if we talk about pure terminology, freelancer means like free hire, like mercenary. Like back in the day when, I mean, there's still war going on in the world, sadly, but when there was a lot more wars, it was very common to work as a mercenary, to actually fight for another country in exchange for money. So that is what the freelancer word comes from. So a freelancer is just someone who isn't employed, but is still working for you. and that is one good thing to know. But when it comes to a consultant, I mean, the most common way of being a consultant is being a hired consultant. And consultant only means that you are out like giving advice and working and for another company. You can also be something called a resource consultant, which is someone working in the normal day-to-day. I'm usually a resource consultant. I'm replacing a full-time employee when I'm out. So that is a consultant. I don't think that you should become too hooked up about the consultant word. I think that is like on its way down. I think freelancer is a word that is like on its way up, but it could mean the same thing. But a consultancy firm could be a lot of people, while a freelancer is always an individual. So that's a good difference to be aware about. Was that an answer to the question?
See what this say. Yes, and
Great.
you also added the article, so it's in the chat, so you can read more about it. Camilla has a question. She has actually done her first freelance gig as a UI designer. That's super cool, Camilla.
Yeah.
But she asked, how do you handle NDAs as a freelancer? In Swedish, I think it's sekretessavtal.
Yeah.
So you're signing something with the one you're gonna work for that you cannot share.
Yeah.
Anything about it?
Yeah.
How do you, because if you start gigging, you want to show your work.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, NDAs, I mean, contract, it's just such a formality, I think. But some companies force you or like make you sign an NDA in order to work for them. It's usually just like super standard common stuff. They don't want to brag about having consultants on board or having freelancers on board, because I think in the older generation, that means that you can't attract employees. So you aren't attractive in the jobs market. So that is why they have an NDA, so that the consultants won't talk about it. I think that is on its way, like that. It was much more like that when I started out 6-7 years ago. It's much less so now. All big companies in Sweden have consultants. Like that's how it works. Like no company does not have consultants. So that is on its way. It's not going to be a big deal in the future, I think. But NDAs could also be because they have a secret business, or because it's a government, or anything along those lines. But it's usually usually ask in an email, so that you have it on print. That's a good tip. In an email, I ask my contractor or customer, or whatever you want to call it, is it okay if I share something and I say exactly what I want to share? Like I give them an example of the post that I want to share, and they say, yeah, of course. Like they are usually very happy to get. It's like free marketing. I say like, oh, I just signed with this company and I'm here doing that, and that's super interesting, or something. Like obviously you can't share anything negative. That goes without saying, I hope. But it's usually fine to share something personal. I mean, you share as an individual, you don't share as your company. And I think that's a difference. You have signed the NDA as your company, but obviously your company is responsible for everything you do while working. But if you want to share something in your free time, you can ask your maybe the PR department, communications department, and your boss. And usually it's like 100% fair game. But do ask before, of course. So that's my take on that.
Good tip, I think. I also like the fact that if you share directly, this is the part, to be very clear. We got a question early. You can see that my eyes are moving. It's because I read all your questions, and they are a lot. It's so much fun that we are so interactive in this.
Yeah.
One early question is from Felicia, and she asked, is it possible for me to do this freelancing while I'm already employed as a consultant in a larger company?
Great question. I think this is also depending on the local laws. I can only talk about Sweden because that's the market that I know well. Usually that's fine, unless, and here comes the big unless, it's a competitive business. And what is a competitive business? Well, I would it's absolutely probably illegal. I mean, this is depending on what it says in your contract. Like there's no general law against this, but it's what is very important to be aware of what you have signed in your contract, because there it's gonna say something about you're not allowed to have a business that is competitive to what you're doing at the client. So that's one thing. But if it's not competitive, like let's say that you work at a grocery store and then you do freelance photography, I mean, that's completely fine. But if you work at a consultancy company and you want to do consulting within the same area, let's say it's like UX, and let's say it's the same customer, I mean, that is completely probably not allowed. But again, it depends on your contract. Like all of this depends on the contract, but probably they have written something about this, that is illegal. That is how they protect their own business. They want to protect their own client. But it is a gray zone, I think. Don't take my word for it, but it's like if it's another customer and you are a consultant at both, and you're doing a little bit of different thing, that's a little bit of a gray zone, depending on your risk profile. If you don't want to take any risks, I would never do that. But if you are a little bit more risky, then you could do it. I mean, it's a complete gray zone. I've never heard of any actual lawsuits that have gone through on this subject. It's an interesting subject, and it's something that a lawyer should probably say something about, and not me sitting here. But it's usually think about the competitiveness and read your contract, and then I think it will make sense what is allowed or not.
Good one. I hope you felt satisfied with that answer. All right, I don't even know what to pick, but I can see, I try to pick the question that are the many of, but I mean, someone's asking, what do you think about freelancing right after graduation? I've seen this question before here.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I know so many developers who actually started freelancing, like, I don't know, in their teenage years. They just didn't know that they were actually freelancing. Like, let's say they were good at building websites and their neighbor knew that they were good at building websites. And the neighbor comes over and says like, oh, can't you help me build your website? And you say, yeah, but I should probably charge something for that. And they say, yeah, fine, sure. And then you have a deal. Then that is basically freelancing. Like you earn some money and you help someone out. Like lots of developers are self-taught. I mean, not all, of course. Technigo has super great courses that you can take in order to become a developer. But some developers are self-taught. And they start freelancing without even thinking about it, maybe when they're a teenager. And then they continue to adult. I mean, I know so many freelancers who are in my age, like 30 years old, who are self-taught and started as teenagers. So I think with that said, like freelancing directly after graduation, the difficulty is that you are a junior, and the difficulty is finding a gig since you don't have any experience. I mean, but as long as you do that, it's no problem. I mean, if you have a neighbor or if you know someone that needs help, then it's just like, shoot, go for it. That's awesome. Yeah. Then you can land your own assignment. But the difficulty is finding the assignment.
Yeah, I know that because Technigo, we are running boot camps within, as you said, Anna, within web development and UX design. It's 22 weeks. and it's from zero to hero. It's like a complete career change. I know that we have some students here too, and you guys, you are building your portfolio from day one, and you have
Awesome.
you know a lot of projects that you can show already, or apply freelance gig with. I guess, I presume that's how
Yeah, because
you have
I
a really
think
good CV.
yeah, that's a great point because in terms of experience, I mean, it's good to be able to show up experience where you got paid. I mean, that you were actually hired as a UX or developer, but you can also show your own projects, like you said, like if you have built your own website or if you have designed some app or something, maybe you weren't able to charge for it, but you have still done it. You can show that in your portfolio, and that can help you land assignments. But it's important to be clear that it wasn't a real work, so to say. But I mean, I usually show up my own websites when I apply for assignments, and they are super impressed and like, oh my God, that's so cool. And it's a great icebreaker as well. And I mean, if you show that you're really interested in something, then you maybe should have like done something in your free time as well along those lines. Maybe, I mean, it's a good way of showing that you're really interested in this subject.
That's continuing reading. Good tips, and also amazing questions. I know that I can see that you have in a chat some chat with each other about what kind of company to open and such. I know, Anna, you told AB, or the limited, that you mentioned.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there was a certain I mean, there are also lower levels of type of company that you are yourself, and if something happens, it applies to your own personal economy. So I guess that's why you highlight the limited options better, because you have
Enskild firma is something in Sweden, like own company. Then your personal financial situation is intertwined exactly the same as the company's financial situation. So if you get sued, very unlikely scenario, but still, if you get sued as a company, you can your financial own accounts could be subject for that lawsuit, basically. So what you want to do is have the limited company, because then that lawsuit stays within the company and you can just file for bankruptcy instead. And then your own company isn't, or your own economy isn't a subject in that lawsuit.
So it's okay, whatever you choose. I would recommend you guys to check what's what kind of company types you have in your country. I know in Portugal it's very different from Sweden, so check that out. Don't investigate and research.
Yeah,
that topic.
100%.
Yes.
Make a pros and cons list.
Yes, we love those lists. People also ask, thank you so much. And you're also sharing your own experience. That's amazing. I know that there are many questions that we cannot answer here today, but I mean, we can also reach out to you, Anna.
Yeah, I have a forum where we discuss all of these things. You can go to annalejon.se, and then in the menu you have something called forum, and then you just go in there and you can ask questions in English or Swedish, and everything from tech to freelance to whatever you want to speak about. And you can be anonymous if you want as well. So ask all of your questions there if you want. I usually get lots of questions that I answer every week. Lots of questions there, so that's a good way. We should have another session. I said that time is up. I mean,
this is not enough. And I also because you mentioned your Slack channel. But it was more for
it's established freelancers, because like we want to talk about questions that established freelancers have there. Otherwise it's only we aren't gonna talk about the like how you become a freelancer. So how you become freelancer questions in my forum, And if you're an established freelancer, you are more than welcome to join our freelance community. And you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, maybe, Anna Leijon there, if you want to get an invite.
Yeah,
awesome.
we will send out some links in the mail after, and
yeah,
this is recorded, so you will be able to take a look afterwards.
Yeah.
How time flies when you have fun, I guess.
Yeah.
I hope that you feel, inspired to start your freelancing journey, and that it doesn't feel as scary as you might have thought it was before this session. Anna, any last words or tips to the crowd?
No, I'm just like super overwhelmed with all of the amazing questions. I want to wish you the best of luck. I want you to I mean, it's so important to be aware that this is an option and consider it with all of the pros and cons that it might have. It maybe it doesn't work for you. Maybe it's the best thing that has ever happened to you. I mean, it's just good to evaluate and test yourself. And like the worst thing that can happen is that you go back to to unemployment. I mean, it's not the end of the world. It's like, this wasn't for you. Okay, fine. Then I know that, and you can move on. Or it was the best thing that's ever happened to you. Like a lot of the freelancers I know are witnessing about, and me as well. So go ahead and try it out.
Give it a try. And if you are more curious about Technigo and our school, to become a web developer or a UX designer, we actually have the application open. It's the early bird application, so it's some discount for early birds. We are starting our class in January, and yeah, you will create your own portfolio, and perhaps you gonna choose to become a freelancer after that. Who knows?
Yeah.
So thank you very much, everyone, for attending. And
thank you so much.
Great Thursday. And thank you, Anna, for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Amazing.
Good luck.
See you.
See you. Bye.
Ciao.